name is Mr. Levels.
Once again, starting off on my right foot because my left foot is being stepped on by my partner over here.
Oh, whatever.
Come on. It's Links and Libations magazine team with the beautiful, wonderful, vivacious, and a photographer for national music concerns, Miss Kira Peterson.
And to my right is the vivacious Randy Weckerly.
Just get that fixed.
Stop it.
Gravity works. But when you're 190 years old. Anyway.
How many years have you been going to the PGA show? Like
36. I built the wooden clubs. Hey, we got somebody that wants to come on. Hey, Camden. If I could trade you for her and a player to be named later, I'm good. Camden Ford coming on from a great place down in Florida, in the northern part of Florida. I can't wait to talk to you.
In the Panhandle area.
Yeah, Timber Creek Distillery. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to go to a great website, go to timbercreekdistillery.com. Gorgeous pictures, and you can learn a lot about a lot of things: whiskey, bourbon, and
Vodka.
Yeah,
and gin.
Vodka. Hey, you are
my partner.
Hey, fantastic. Good morning. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing good.
All right. So on the left-hand side, as we look at it, which one is Camden?
That's me.
Camden, and in the background, we got the beautiful Aaron. All right, so.
Very much so. He's the one that's in the backwoods distilling.
Ah, very cool. Yeah, well, we're looking at your website, and how impressed is that? It seems like I've met you somewhere along the line because I've read about the story, but you're located in you're in South Alabama or North Florida, one or the other. It's
all the same. It kind of gets blurry when you get back in the woods.
Yeah, so, well, that's good. But anyway, so tell us the story. How did it begin? And we've got a lot of questions. So welcome to Links and Libations. It's all good.
Well, I spent a lot of time out in Silicon Valley doing tech stuff and went to school here in Florida. And my wife grew up here at Fort Walton Beach, and we always loved coming back here. We ended up buying a house here, and Aaron happened to be my next door neighbor.
Nice.
And I wanted to start a business when I got down here. So I was doing a bunch of research, and one of the areas I was looking into was craft distilling, because it was kind of the next up and coming thing like craft beers. And it turns out we both love whiskey, and we're hanging out talking and drinking, and I started doing a bunch of research, and then he got interested and started doing some research, and then I started doing a little practicing in my backyard to make sure that I could do it. And it turns out Aaron's actually a longtime home brewer, so he actually knew a lot more about the process than I did. He had some equipment. He's like, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? So he got into it, and we just started talking about, doing it for real. And I got a couple of knocks on the door from the local authorities, not real happy with some of the things we were doing. And it was time to go legal and apply for our license.
Oh, come on. In the South, that's okay. Back in the day in the 20s in Chicago, there was a guy distributing up here, and he was a lot of fun, Mr. Capone, as we know. So
yeah.
But anyway,
well, as I found out, there are certainly quite a few people back here in the woods they're doing a little distilling. Probably about half the people that come and visit us, they all lean over and say, "Hey, I got a still. Mine's better than yours."
Yeah.
So we're like, "Okay, bring it on down. Let's do a little test." We haven't lost yet.
Yeah. Well, I like the header on your website called Truth and Spirits. So that's pretty interesting. What does that mean, Truth and Spirits? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, to be honest, we were new. There was an article I read not long ago from the guy who invented Hendrick's Gin, and he had done a couple other products, and he also started a distillery recently. But one of the notable things in his article was he said, when you see the term craft distillery, what that means is newbie, right? Which is true.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing. I'm an engineer, so I did a lot of research and homework and understand the manufacturing side, and I've done startup businesses and things. Luckily, Aaron actually knows a lot about the brewing, which is more of the art side of things. But I did a lot of homework on the channels and the market and distribution and liquor stores and liquor laws and all that kind of stuff. But the part that was a little bit of a shock to me was to realize how many vodkas, whiskeys, gins distillers don't actually distill themselves.
Exactly.
Right? There's an industry called non-distiller producers,
Right.
which are people that buy contract booze from large factories and they put their label on it and they sell it as their own product.
Right.
And the consumers in the spirits industry, they don't really know any better. And they're like, oh yeah, let's drink this cool thing from this local company. And it's not local at all. We had a funny one down here. One of the big magazines in the South is Southern Living Magazine.
All right.
And one year, I was in a liquor store and the guy was like, hey, you guys need to win some awards like this vodka did from Southern Living Magazine. They won the award for best vodka in the South. And of course, it's contract booze that they bought from probably Indiana.
Right. Yeah.
So the best vodka in the South. And I wrote these guys a note. I said, you guys need to do a little bit more homework. I said, how would you feel if you got, Uncle Bobby's barbecue sauce was the best barbecue sauce in the South, and you found out they bought it from Heinz in Boston?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So Truth in Spirits is really about trying to help educate the population on, what are some of the dirty little secrets that go on in the industry. One of the other ones that's pretty funny lately is there's this string of what they call low-cal vodkas, right? And there's one that advertises that their vodka is, 25% lower calorie than regular vodkas.
Sure.
You know how they make it lower calorie?
Add water.
Add water.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they charge you more money for it.
Because
right?
they special produced it. Come on. And it's all about the water. It's everybody has their special water from all over, because it is different. People don't realize that, water is different. But yes, I have visited. Started off with a very good dear friend of mine, looked to get into the distillery business, and sat with him for 5 years as he was looking to do it. And we went down these mysteries. But it's been a lot of fun for me. I've traveled all over the United States, and you're right. You're spot on. The stories you look. So are you still there? We freeze. You'll have to come back in. Oh, we lost him. Hey, if you're still there, Camden, come back on. Our feed continues to go. Totally. Anyway, that's a pretty interesting story, though.
That is super interesting.
Yeah, it's.
Didn't we have a discussion about that?
Yeah.
Those kind of.
Yeah, no, it is part of the
distiller,
industry. You can go buy it, and from Indiana, and basically, here you go.
Oh.
Bring him back in. There you go. We're bringing you back in, Camden. There you go.
We don't know what happened.
We should have paid our full phone bill. At the time. if that.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Hey, Camden.
Oh.
You're all good. Hello.
There we go.
We're
back.
I hate it.
So,
go ahead.
technical tip for you: when text messages come through, everything goes to hell.
We know that. we just had that on the last one. So we're actually, as I said, we're going to be setting up a whole new studio here when we're done. Actually, with yours, and it won't look much different to you, but it'll be a lot better way for us. So anyway, these become pretty popular. Our Open for Business campaign is all about golfers golf, then they sip, and golf courses are everywhere. I've actually played way back when in Dothan, Alabama, some tournaments that they had there. So it's a pretty cool area. But anyway, you're right. We were talking about. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a question. How long have you guys been in business for?
So we got licensed about 3.5 years ago. We built our distillery. We've been distilling for June of 15, so just over 3 years.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome.
That's very cool. So in terms of whiskey and bourbon, are you getting into the bourbon area, or is it whiskey, or where in the world?
Our Florida whiskey does qualify to be bourbon, but we did some market research, and it seems like Florida whiskey is a better term for us to use, just because consumers tend to be uneducated on it. The first thing that comes out of the mouth is, oh, bourbon has to come out of Kentucky, and just that whole long spiel of, well, no, It doesn't. You should be more educated about spirits. Just got exhausting. So Florida whiskey sounds good to me, and we want to own Florida whiskey and define what it is in the state of Florida.
So we actually make 4 different whiskeys right now. We have our Florida whiskey, which is a wheat bourbon, like a Maker's or a Weller. We also have what we call our Southern Reserve, which is a 4-grain bourbon. So it's got all corn, wheat, rye, and barley in it. Makes it very spicy, bold, lots of flavor, a little bit higher proof. It's 100 proof. We have a Florida black rye, which is actually a type of rye grain that only grows in the state of Florida. It's a really unique rye, great flavor, little honey finish on the back end. And then we just came out with a single malt. So we have 100% barley. The barley doesn't grow here in Florida, although we do have a farmer who's going to try to grow us some this winter.
Really?
We did pull our barley out of northern Alabama. So it's as local as we can get. We use Florida limestone spring water. We use all local grains as much as we can get them. And we make everything here by hand.
Oh, that is very cool. So on your website, I always like to have you pat yourself on the chest. September 3rd, 2018, Timber Creek, Florida, Vodka awarded a gold medal. Tell us about that. What's the separator and why it makes it award winning?
Well, our vodka is made from North Florida red soft winter wheat. And the way that we distill is a little bit different, and we distill all of our products that way. We lauter the grains kind of like the beer guys do and the Scotch distillery guys do. We really modeled our process after how the Scotch distillers operate, and it gives us a very, very clean product, a very clean whiskey, a very clean vodka, a very clean gin. So all of our products are very, very clean. They're very easy to drink. And, that's just one award. We've actually won about 14 awards now. I think we're the most awarded distillery in the state of Florida.
Congratulations.
The more contests we enter, the more awards we win. So we're going to keep on doing it.
Yeah, I got introduced to this. The American Craft Distillers Association asked us when at the Palmer House about 3 years ago for my distillery channel is where we started this. And they said, could you look to be a platform for the distillery industry, or in other words, evolve and get that out. So that's where Links and Libations came from, because we had a big position in the world of golf, and golfers golf, then they sip. Who knew? So anyway,
Sometimes they sip and then they golf. It makes the golf better, right?
Well, and again,
that's how I learned. That's how I like to learn.
Yeah, we gave Miss Kira the LPGA initiative of Invite Her program we brought, but we deal with the PGA and the LPGA and golf in a big way, and the snowbirds come down in the winter. So what we do in our magazine and in our podcast is accentuate where to go. And that's why we, had Rob contact you folks, because you're in a great area. I love that area. Callaway Gardens, I used to, for 35 years, take a pretty high level group of people there to golf. Great place to go and stop and play a lot of golf. And when it snowed a little bit, we got down into where you are. So we're pretty familiar with it. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, what, in terms of, do you have a tap room where people can come and visit and have,
Yeah, we just opened up a tasting room probably 6 months ago. It's not real fancy or anything. I mean, what we try to tell people is our distillery is actually a working distillery. It's dirty. It smells like a distillery. We've got grains on the floor.
Nothing wrong with that.
We use it. We're out there doing it every day. We haven't put a whole lot of money into making things super fancy and pretty. We put all our time and effort into making our products quality products and, making them taste great. Over time, we'll certainly enhance things. But yeah, we have a tasting room. Our tours are free. Our tastings are free. We're back in the woods a little bit, so it's a little bit of a drive if you're coming up from Destin or Walton County or over in Panama City or Pensacola. So, if you're going to make the effort to drive out there, we're not going to charge you for a tour. We just want you to come out, hang out. Aaron's been getting really good at making cocktails. He makes his own bitters. We make our own mixers. So he'll mix you up some good cocktails. And I think he had a tour the other day, lasted about 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah, well, you look like you have a good time because you're in the right place and you're all legal now. I got another question for you. The Big Fish app. I grew up, we live in Wisconsin now, but raised all my kids in Illinois bound. Tell us about that, because we can actually order, one of the leading spirits from Florida through that, it appears. And is that something
Absolutely.
new? Is that something new?
Yeah, so Big Fish Spirits is a brand new type of company. There's a new license that Illinois started issuing about a year ago called a digital retail license that allows operators, retailers to operate on the internet without actually having a physical store, right? You can actually buy a lot of products over the internet in state, but you have to buy it from a store who has a website. So Big Fish is the first licensee of this digital retail license. They just got their website up and running. They're starting to build their following, and they're really focusing on this new trend of craft spirits. So they've got, I think, about 50 or 60 distilleries and maybe 100, 150, 200 products on their website so far. Timber Creek, we've got all 10 of our products out there. We have 4 different rums. We have 4 different whiskeys that we talked about. We have our vodka. We have a great honeysuckle gin that's really easy to drink. That's been doing really well for us since we launched it a few months ago. But all 10 of our products are out there on the website. And if you live in Illinois, you can go to the website, you can punch up the products you want, and they'll deliver it and it'll show up at your door.
Now, do you have to be Illinois based to buy it through that app, or can
yeah,
you...
so right now it's a state, all liquor laws are controlled by each state.
Right.
So they have very tight control about, cross state lines, interstate commerce laws around things like liquor and, things your buddy Al Capone was doing up there in Chicago, moving stuff over from Canada was, not looked upon very favorably by some people. But yeah, so what their plan is they've got their app up and running. They're kind of building out their infrastructure in Illinois. They have a distributor and they have a trucking company that they work with for delivery who's actually going to work with them, and they're going to expand into all the neighboring states. So they plan to get into all the states around there, right? Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. So they want to bring this same model to these other states once they get up and running.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have had our hands around, particularly in Wisconsin. They have some complex laws for those that are serving. If you're in a winery, you can't be open past 8. But if you're in a brewery across from Badger Stadium, you can be open till whenever. I mean, if there's, we gave it. I don't get the political end. I just open up the microphone if people want to come in and have some fun. But yeah, that's great. That sounds. I'm sure Illinois is doing it. Not that they don't need to raise the tax money, they do. But anyway, it's a great place where we can buy your product. And how many times, like in our world, we're building out a whole new studio. We love to have, who we talk to in the studio in the background and such. So it'll give us an opportunity maybe to get some of that swagger bottles in here. But anyway, no, it sounds great. To be a leading distillery in the state of Florida, you're not positioned centrally, but that's a great, great reputation based on taste. That's awesome.
Well, one of the things that actually has worked out really well for us, and when I did my research, this was really important, right? When you're starting up a craft product like this, number one, you want to have quality ingredients, and number two, you want to try to buy them locally. You want to support the local farmers, but you also want to get the flavors that are associated with the area, right? In the wine, they call it the terroir, right? Which basically means your grapes are going to get certain flavors based on the soil, the temperature, how they grow, the winds, the rain, all that stuff. So right here in North Florida, unlike South Florida, we have a couple of things that work really well for us. Number one, we have great farmers right here that grow corn, wheat, rye, oats, hopefully barley this winter. And that's about everything that we need to make good whiskey. Right down the road in Louisiana, we have all the molasses that we can handle. We actually have some local farmers that do grow some sugar cane. We're going to try to grow some sugar cane on our property next year as well. So we've got some local farmers that are going to get us some fresh cane juice from their farms right here in our own county. And the limestone spring water here is fantastic, right? I mean, everybody talks about Kentucky will tell you what makes their whiskey different is their limestone spring water, but you don't see anybody bottling up limestone spring water in Kentucky and selling it, do you?
No, not really.
Right? So, we got a bunch of people bottling up Florida limestone spring water and selling that. And we've got some great springs right up here north of us. We pull everything out of the Florida aquifer. It's fantastic, pure limestone spring water. And then when you're making whiskey, one of the things that's really important is the temperature and the climate, because in order to get the whiskey to go in and out of the wood to get the flavors, you actually have to have temperature swings and pressure changes.
Right.
Places like South Florida are not really good for that because the temperature is very constant.
Right.
And then when I was up in Kentucky doing the distillery trail and kind of checking out how the big guys do stuff, we were out visiting one of the distilleries and they had these big pipes overhead. And I asked them, what are those pipes for? And they said, well, those are steam pipes. We pump steam into our rick houses because they discovered that whiskey stops aging below 45 degrees.
Yep.
So down here in the Panhandle, because we're not, Aaron and I live right here in Destin at the beach where the weather's a little bit more mild, but up in Crestview where we have the distillery an hour north, In the wintertime, it gets down to freezing. It gets cold. We get the temperature changes. In the summertime, it's 100, 110. It's got awful hot. And those barrels are exposed to that Florida humidity, the heat, the temperature swings that we get. And the nice part is that it gets cold, but not too cold. Back in February, I actually dumped some whiskey out of the barrels to make a new batch, and the whiskey was 45 degrees in the barrel. So we know it gets cold enough, but it doesn't get too cold. And then, of course, the high heat causes the whiskey to age quicker. Right. So we've got fantastic grains, we've got fantastic water, and we've got the perfect climate for aging whiskey right here in North Florida. And unlike Kentucky, we're 45 minutes away from the beautiful beaches of Destin.
How long? How far? What's that distance?
It's about 45, 50 miles. So it's depending on traffic, it's 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Well, when I took my kids to Destin the first time, it was snowing in Chicago, and we drive into Destin, and they said, I thought the beaches were going to be nice. They're all full of snow. So they're perfectly white. What a great place.
Absolutely.
It's just a wonderful place. No, being the distiller is it's a fascinating. Here in Wisconsin, they have to leave it in the barrels an extra year because it's so cold. I mean, it's the opposite of that. So when they started throwing it in, so yeah, it's for us. We hear all these stories. I never want to be a distiller. I do not want to be anybody that does the magic that you create, because that just seems like a lot of pressure. I mean, it's Miss Carol, I'll tell you, I'd goof it up. There'd be no question.
You would.
Yeah, I just plain goof it up. So I don't want to do that. But you guys
it requires constant quality control.
Yep. Yeah,
which means we have to drink a lot.
Hey, I've done a
That
lot.
sounds really rough.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be coming down to the PGA show in January, and we're going to be traveling around the state. So it's going to be a lot of fun for us. We're going to be down there hopefully for a month, and bring our whole crew down and do a lot of filming and talking and doing these live. But anytime that you want to come on, you got some news, you got some awards, you got some outreach you want to do. That's what we're here for. And we want to get you in the magazine. And if you got local golf courses or places that are in the area where people sleep or eat or you partner with, let us know so that we can, let our golfers, travelers. It's not all golfers. Our travel magazine is actually known as Links Libations Luxury Travel Magazine. So people are really going to it right now. So Miss Kira,
what?
Have you learned a lot today?
I did.
I know it.
Now I want a sip or two.
Well, a sip or two is where we go.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, well, if you don't start drinking in the morning, you can't drink all day. So that's what we do. Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. I love all the knowledge that you have. You're the first one I've had. I've visited over 500 distilleries, breweries, and wineries, or with the people, and you are spot on. I'll probably come back to you guys because you know exactly what you're doing, and you know the truth in lending laws. I guess we'll put it that way. You've done a lot of research, and you're telling the story as it should be. And anyway, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for being on. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Have a good
Awesome.
one, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
All right, come by and see us.
Back to the woods. We can't find you.
All right.
See you later. Bye-bye.